Hello and welcome to another Enough Already podcast. My name is Fingers Malloy. Tracy L. Connors is here. Hello, Tracy.
Hello, Fingers.
So I am doing this via remote today. You know, I'm away from our palatial studios over at Enough Already. A lot of people don't know we're recording side by side normally. Let's go with that. But I'm at a local bar that I do another podcast here in Indianapolis. So if you hear any glasses clinking in the background or some music, that's what that's all about. But we have a lot to talk about, Tracy, as we do every week. And I really think we need to begin with Elizabeth Warren and an epic takedown that happened on the name of this show is called The Breakfast Club?
Yes.
So this to me is just beautiful because this is an example, Tracy, of a group of people doing a show who do not give a shit if they get another interview with this person ever again. Right?
Well, no, they have a big platform. That's a very popular morning talk show.
Oh, I agree with you that they've got a big platform and it's a popular show, but there's no way Elizabeth Warren is going to go back on that show after this takedown, is she?
I don't know, Fingers, because I looked at their Twitter feed to see if they put this clip out, which you'd think they would because it got so much traction. But they put out a couple other clips from this interview, and one of them was talking about her forgiving student loan debt. And I read all the comments, and they're mostly positive. And it seems to be from people that actually listen to that show regularly.
So fill everyone in on exactly what went down. Do we have the audio?
We do have the audio.
Okay, so
and the video for those who can watch over on YouTube. Yeah.
So Elizabeth Warren is doing a hit, probably thinking that she's going in friendly territory, and she gets called out for lying about her heritage, and it's epic, Tracy.
It is. So the exchange you're going to hear, the only host's name I know is Charlemagne the God. So you hear him. He's the second one to speak to her. And I'm cutting this a little bit short. So this whole exchange about her and her heritage goes on for a little over 2 minutes. So they've already asked her once about it, and she's given a defense. So this is the second time it's brought up.
So wait, your family told you were Native American?
Yeah.
Charlemagne tells me I'm Dominican, but I don't believe him.
You are. How long did you hold on to that? Because there was some report that said you were Native American on your Texas bar license, and that you said you were Native American on some documents when you were a professor at Harvard. Like, why'd you do that?
So it's what I believe. You know, that's, like I said, it's what I learned from my family.
When did you find out you weren't?
Well, you know, I'm not a person of color. I'm not a citizen of a tribe. And tribal citizenship is an important distinction and not something I am. So.
Were there any benefits to that?
No. Boston Globe did a full investigation. It never affected, nothing about my family ever affected any job I ever got.
Mm-hmm. You didn't get a discount in college? No.
You kind of like the original Rachel Dolezal a little bit. Rachel Dolezal was a white woman pretending to be black.
No, this is what I learned from my family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what
She tried to tap dance around it as much as possible, but he came off the top rope with that.
Right, but he didn't hit her hard enough, I don't think, when he said, did you get any benefit of that? And she was like, oh, no. And then when did you find out? And you see, she dodged that. She didn't want to bring up that awful, here's my DNA test, where I'm 1,024th, if I remember the numbers correctly, Native American.
Yeah, 1,024th, yeah. Which, listen, if you are running against her, first of all, I cannot believe that she has survived this and is still polling in top 5 when it comes to any of the candidates that she's up against for the Democratic nomination. How was that not career suicide right then and there, Tracy? It's amazing to me.
Wait till she gets to the debate stage with Joe Biden. You think he's going to hold back on that?
I would. Well, let's see if Joe Biden even shows up for the debates.
Oh, he's busy. That's nap time.
Right, exactly. What's going to be interesting during the debates is will there be Joe Biden is going to be the only person I think that will attack her on it, because if these candidates are smart, they're all going to have an agreement that they're going to go after Biden. They're not going to attack each other. you got to take Biden down first, don't you? I mean, or do you have to differentiate yourself from the other 814 people who are running?
Yeah, I don't know if you take shots at Biden this early on. And like I said before, I think a lot of this is jockeying to see who gets to be Biden's VP. So do you get to be the VP if you go at him hard?
It's an interesting dance because you need to attack him, but you want to be the Veep candidate.
Right. And I'm interested to see if anybody will play the Trump card where it's just come out hard and loud and hit everybody as fast as possible.
If there's a candidate who would do that, who has declared at this point, who do you think that candidate would be?
The only one that I could potentially see doing that is Bernie Sanders. I just don't think he wants it enough to actually do that. He has the personality where it would be believable if he started hitting everybody like that.
I think Cory Booker could do it.
Really?
Well, I mean, look, I think you got to pick someone who is polling below low-fat milk. Yeah. I mean, if you're a one percenter and not in a good way, I think you got to start hitting everyone hard. I guess, but the problem is with that is you may not even be on the debate stage. I mean, they've got all these rules.
Right. Well, remember, first time around, we get to see 20 of them the first two nights. And then for the first two debates, and this is where it gets a little bit confusing. So there's two debates, but each debate, I guess, is going to be 2 nights. So it's based off of, these are the first debates on, I think the first one's on NBC. And then the second one's on a different network. The third one's not until the fall. So it goes June, July, and then September. So my understanding is those June debates will be 10 and 10, July will be 10 and 10, and then September. They're really going to crack down.
Again, way too early to start this shit.
They figure summer is slow news because Congress goes on vacation for a lot of the time. So they figure, why not? And, the kids are off of school, and every kid I know just can't wait to see these debates.
Right.
They can stay up past their normal bedtime and tune in and watch Elizabeth Warren explain all of her policy positions.
And
Go ahead.
A lot of these kids who are watching these debates are actually not polling too far behind some of the candidates.
Right. Or remember the guy that registered as D's Nuts and was polling at like 2% back in 2016?
That's right.
I can do that.
So does you think Bernie will be the one that hits her the hardest?
I think he's the only one in my mind that could pull off a Trumpian approach where it just comes out swinging. But there's nothing about him that leads me to believe he has the capacity to do that.
Well, there's something to be said, too, about not punching down.
Yeah.
I mean, I would think Bernie, his target would be Biden. And why go after someone who's polling at 5%? I think that's the last number I saw, where Elizabeth Warren's polling right around 5%. So Bernie's around 15, 16%. Biden's over 30. I think Biden probably needs to spend Bernie needs to spend most of his energy attacking Biden.
Well, it also depends on who ends up on the stage together, remember.
Oh, that's true.
There's no guarantee that any of them will end up on the same stage. But you would think it wouldn't be dumb for Bernie to go after Warren. They're in the same progressive lane. So if she's knocked out, where do her people go?
Right.
To him. So he could pick up some points by taking her out and maybe Tulsi Gabbard. I just don't think he has the stomach for it. Just remember, when he was debating Clinton and it was the two of them on stage together, he would say, only one of us has taken money from the big banks for giving speeches. Not Hillary did this and going at her hard, which just seems against how you would imagine him to react, as he seems like such a curmudgeon that would be great at insulting people, but nah.
He's just a bad revolutionary.
Yeah, he is. He's a lazy revolutionary.
Well, it's hard to be a revolutionary when you have 3 beach homes. Are we up to 3? What are we up to now? I'm just gonna keep adding. It's like a Monopoly board.
I do think it's 3.
Yeah, I wonder though, the people who are, and I'm just going to totally be stereotypical here. I wonder the people when Warren backs out of the race, will most of her supporters want to go to another woman that's running for president? Will they want to gravitate to an old white male who's running for president of the United States? I would be interesting to see what the breakdown is of her supporters.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's people that like them for different reasons. Like you've been saying, you know, they've all seemed to be pushing one big issue. So there could be people that are there just for that you could have some of just the women. Who knows? But there are enough women in this that's kind of split up. I think there's some woman that I can't even remember her name that I had never heard of before that I saw mentioned recently. So I think that's 6 women running. So that's got to be splitting up that whole vote quite a bit.
This is just going to be so much fun to watch.
It is.
But if Bernie Sanders were a true revolutionary, someone who really wanted to go to Washington, even though he's part of the system and part of the swamp, and burn it down, the first thing I would do if I were running in 2020 is I would go scorched earth on CNN, the DNC. I would even be objecting to how these debates are being formatted, because to me, I would right out of the gate say, okay, this seems fishy how they're doing things. Are they going to put candidates up against Joe Biden that they perceive weaker because they're trying to make it an easy path for Biden to get the nomination? Is the fix already in because they don't want someone as far to the left as some of these candidates? They want a more mainstream candidate like Joe Biden. I would, if I were him, if I were Bernie, I would be going scorched earth.
Well, he didn't do it back in 2016 when they did the same thing to him. No, and I sorry, I didn't put this in the doc here, but there was an article that was in Politico, I guess, recently. And this is something else I learned about on the fabulous Jimmy Dore show, which I would recommend to everybody. Check it out on YouTube. But they're progressives, and they were furious about this. Look at this Politico magazine cover. Bernie Sanders with a tree that has money and his beach house. I know, they were upset. They were like, "This is so disgusting," and blah blah blah. And
so disgustingly accurate.
Yeah, I think so too. So it's called "The Secret of Bernie's Millions." How did he amass 3 houses? There you go, fingers.
Oh,
and a net worth approaching at least $2 million. So, yeah. So they're hitting them hard, of course. And then they had this little graphic in here about how much the other senators that are running are worth. Just the senators, mind you.
Yeah, there's such a focus on Trump's tax returns, which I'm fine with seeing them. I don't have a problem with them being released, but I'm more obsessed with how someone can get elected to Congress and then walk away 20 years later a millionaire several times over. Can we get those financial records as well?
Right. Well, I'm obsessed with how they're allowed to do, when they do their financial disclosures, they're allowed to give a range. Like Nancy Pelosi's worth between $10 and $80 million, you know, and those aren't the right numbers, but it's something like along those lines. And it's this huge range. Well, what is it? We can't know. Yeah.
It reminds me of that. What was that website that you sent to me where you can look up anyone and it will tell you their supposedly what their net worth is and how much they make every year. And this isn't like a celebrity net worth website. This is just Joe Blow from Kokomo.
Right.
We believe he makes $90,000 a year, and his net worth ranges anywhere from $99,000 to $2 million. It's like,
right. It's called mylife.com.
That's what it is.
It just seems to pull information from a bunch of different sites, but not stuff like LinkedIn. Right. Because I only know this because coworkers of mine found it, and then they're like, "Hey, we looked you up on this thing. You got to check it out." So according to this, I am a single male Christian who, let me see. Oh, no, excuse me. No, I'm married now.
Oh, congratulations. I'm a little upset that I wasn't invited to the wedding, but hey, whatever. You do you.
I live in a home worth $60.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
That's a hell of a marriage you got there.
I know. It's great. Yes, it says about me, assuming gender, which I should sue these guys for, currently works as an event planner and promotions and productions.
Have you ever been an event planner your entire life?
Nope.
But see, that's understandable that they would have no idea what you're doing. You're not running for public office and you haven't been in Congress, but you would think this information, if we want transparency, if we want to know about Trump's tax returns, I want to know how Nancy Pelosi has become a millionaire several times over. Can I have that information, please, instead of going on and on about his tax returns? And again, I don't have a problem seeing them. Where's your information? I want to see it.
Right. Well, it just kind of proves that there's nobody in the IRS that's on Trump's team, because we would have seen that leaked. Remember, the only stuff from his tax returns we've seen has been leaked out from the IRS to the New York Times.
Right.
So what's to stop any other nefarious IRS agent from leaking any of Democrats' tax returns?
Oh, that would be so delicious if that were to happen. The people who are screaming for these tax returns, as if, look, if somehow Trump broke the law, I want to know about it. But clearly, it doesn't look like he has. You know, he said that he can't release them because he's been audited, but or he's in the process of being audited, or whatever the story is.
He's under constant audit, according to him, which I don't believe, but maybe it's true.
It could be true. But no one has hauled him away yet for tax evasion.
Right. And I would imagine he's been audited a couple times. And maybe it was a year ago or so, when the New York Times put out a whole big long story about his family and their tax history. And I read through all, 700 pages of that. And buried in there, it just said, we discussed with tax experts, and they said nothing that's in here has any illegality about it whatsoever.
No, of course not. But what it would be is it would be embarrassing as far as politically embarrassing, because people don't understand how rich people are taxed. They don't understand capital gains taxes versus income taxes, and they'll just look at his tax rate, and that will be used against him politically. That's what this is all about, because there has been no evidence shown that he has broken any kind of tax laws. And when you're that rich, you get really good accountants that follow the law and figure out ways to shelter your money to get the least amount of taxes possible to be paid. So, but again, I don't mind. Hey, sure, let's see it, but I want to see everybody's. Put it all out on the table. Let's talk transparency. How did Bernie get his 3 beach houses? How did?
Well, he's put his taxes out, to be honest.
Well, that's true.
Remember, it's from his book sales.
Right. Yeah, but that's the thing. Nobody in the media will dig. I mean, we found that information a few weeks ago, where his campaign bought. Yes. What was it? $400,000 worth of books.
Yeah, something along those lines. I think it ended up being 44,000 copies.
So to be fair, you are right. He did release his tax returns,
right? But
others haven't. I don't think I have ever heard of Nancy Pelosi releasing her tax returns.
No, we should expect that everybody that's running on the Democrat side will release theirs. Then a lot of them have. Beto, they found out that he owed taxes, so he and his wife had to cut a check for a couple grand that they owed. I believe Elizabeth Warren's released hers. Kamala Harris has released hers. There's just nothing all that interesting,
right?
Because they don't have something. They're not business owners. They don't have a huge empire,
right?
Yeah, where you're doing stuff like depreciation. They don't. Along with not teaching people finances, like how to keep, out of debt in your life in school, they also don't teach you about doing your taxes. So that's what it is that nobody really understands the whole system. And people will tell you can have 2 accountants look at something and tell you 2 totally different things.
And once again, that also shows just how ridiculously complex our tax system is and the tax code is, that people, when you can have 2 different accountants look at something and come up with 2 different conclusions, again, we need to go to something much more fair and simpler than what we have right now. But that will never happen because, let's face it, Washington, D.C. really likes to influence people's behavior based on the tax code and use the tax code to influence people's behavior.
Yes. And what would they campaign? What would the Democrats campaign on? Everything they have involves raising taxes on somebody.
Yeah, a third of your campaign is based on jealousy. A third is based on anger. And you pick the other third, Tracy.
I was just going to say it's about caring.
Oh, compassion, yeah.
Compassion, fairness, caring.
Yes, we care about fairness, but we also want everyone to pay for your student loan debt and just eliminate it, even though, they may have paid for their own student loans and figured out a way to be responsible. But, that's not fair anymore. Because
no, it's not fair.
The student loan crisis has gotten so out of control, Tracy, that everyone, even the kid who is barely being taxed because he's not making enough income, his tax dollars should go to someone's student loan debt. That's fair.
Right. Well, we'll raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour so we can tax you to pay for people's student loan debt.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
So there's that. And speaking of someone else, as far as grift goes, as far as who wants to be a millionaire, we need to go to our former president, Barack Obama. And let's begin with comments he made in Brazil, because it's really fun for leftists to go outside of the United States and criticize America, and a lot of them do it every chance they can. So the president, former president Barack Obama, made some ridiculous statements about guns in the United States. I believe you have the story pulled up. Share with us the remarks that he made.
I did have it. Hang on just a second. I'm pulling it up now.
By the way, while you're doing that, I'm drinking a really good coffee stout. So
yeah?
For the people, I didn't pick the glass, though. It's a little too fancy of a glass for me. But this is a nice place, and so they put it in a fancy glass for me. Those of you watching on YouTube.
Yes. And let's just recall that it was last week when Trump was in Japan that he got in trouble from the media by talking smack on Joe Biden when he was abroad. But we're perfectly okay with Obama going to Brazil for I don't know what reason. He's down there. He was in Europe recently, and I was looking at some of the videos because I've got a little theory in my head that I'll bring up a little bit later on, but I wanted to check a few things. And he's out for the Obama Foundation. European tour. Yeah. He's learned from the Clintons on that one.
The Clintons changed everything. I mean, we should call the 2020 campaign on the Democratic side Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Yeah.
Because once you become president of the United States, if you aren't already a millionaire, once you leave office, I mean, it's a cash cow. The Clintons proved that. And now you see President Obama following in their footsteps. And part of me, I can't say I blame him.
No.
I mean, if some corporation or some entity in another country wants to fly you over and give you $500,000 to $1 million for a speech, I'm not going to turn that coin down. But don't pretend to be an every guy while you're doing it and rail on the rich.
Well, this is the man, too, Obama, who said at some point you've made enough money.
Yes.
So maybe he'll let us know when that is for him, what that number is, because I can't even remember what the two of them, they both got huge advances for their books, which he hasn't even begun to write, I don't think his.
What's the foundation called? The You Didn't Build That Foundation? What?
Correct.
Okay, just want to make sure I remember.
The I Built This Foundation.
I Built This Foundation. Okay,
yeah,
so here he's in Brazil talking about
Yeah.
guns.
Yeah. There you go.
I've said this before. The most difficult day that I've had was the day that there was a shooting in a school where 20 small children were shot, as well as some teachers. And my daughters were only a little bit older than these young children that had been shot, and I had to go and comfort the parents.
He had to go.
And some of you may be aware, our gun laws in the United States don't make much sense. Anybody can buy any weapon, anytime, without...
See, are they applauding because they want to be able to buy any weapon anytime?
It's confusing.
It is confusing. All right, let's continue.
Without much if any regulation. They can buy it over the internet. They can buy machine guns. And for me, having to speak to parents who have lost a child just 2 days or a day after it had happened, and not being able to assure them that that would change, that we would fix this. I couldn't bring their children back, but I couldn't even promise them that we would change the law so this didn't happen to somebody else's children.
So full of shit.
He makes it sound like there's like a machine gun vending machine here at the bar that I could just, swipe my credit card and a gun would pop out and I could go on a rampage.
And I know.
That's how he makes the United States sound.
Can you do me a favor? Can you walk over to the bartender and ask them if they'll sell you a gun?
What do you think the answer will be?
No. We don't sell those here. You have to go to a, what is it, FFL? Is that what it's called? The FLL, Federally Licensed Firearms Dealer?
Well, no, that's not the way it goes. I mean, it's easier to get a gun in the city of Chicago than it is to buy a book. You can you go to Amazon.
Sure.
It's raining guns in this country. It is so ridiculous. I mean, I hate that we things like this come up, especially after the awful shooting that just happened, which, by the way, not all the facts have come out on the Virginia Beach shooting, but I believe I read that was a handgun that was used.
That's what I read, 45 caliber handgun.
So what's the solution? Are we going to ban handguns now?
Yes. I mean, that's at the end of the day. We all understand that that's what they want is total ban. They want the New Zealand style or the Australia style.
And how quickly it moved from we don't want to take your guns to, oh yeah, we want to take your guns.
We want to buy them back from you.
Which, again, I don't know how you buy something back that you never owned, but
right.
That's the language that's used because that sounds the least threatening. Oh, we're buying it back.
Yeah. We'll give you a fair price. It's some convoluted eminent domain reasoning or something. We've decided we need this gun more than you do.
Right.
And then what do they do with all the guns that they have? Honestly, did they sell them off to the Middle East like they did during the Obama administration?
They sell them to the drug cartels in Mexico.
Right. There you go.
That's what they do. Look, it never ceases to amaze me the thought process behind that way of thinking. It's okay. We're just going to ban all the guns and we'll buy them back, and people will just. The people that won't sell them back, we'll get them one way or another. Not thinking about all the bloodshed.
No,
that will take place.
But do you think they think that in that direction? What that looks like?
I think they're fine with the bloodshed. I truly believe that they're fine with the idea that these right-wing nuts, these NRA members, if they're willing to die for their guns, then by gosh, they should die. I truly believe that that's the thought process. Not thinking of, and it's really safe thinking when you're not the person being sent to confiscate those guns and getting into a gunfight. Because let's face it, there are a lot of people in this country, especially former veterans, who are willing to die to defend their Second Amendment rights. Well,
all you have to do is think about what happened in Waco. That was all about them having guns that the government didn't want them to have. They thought they were illegally selling these guns when they were perfectly permitted to do so. They were going to gun shows. That's how they made money to build that compound and survive. And the government came for them. And look what happened.
Right. So we're in fantasy land where over 300 million guns are going to be confiscated. No illegal guns will be on the street, and none will come over the border, the southern border, and there won't be a black market, being that we're not wanting to do anything to patrol the border at all. We shouldn't even have a border, Tracy, according to some of these people.
We shouldn't. I don't know why we do. I don't know why we bother having a country. I'm on board with that part of it.
But you look at drugs and prostitution in this country, and we can't seem to get either one of those off the street. And yet we're going to confiscate 300 million guns, and there will be no illegal guns on the street, and there will be no gunplay at all.
They can't even keep drugs out of prisons. I'm serious.
You're right.
I mean, what's more fortified than that?
Can't do it.
So let's not pretend that we can stop this 100%. Let's get real.
Okay, and since we're getting real, let's talk about President Obama and his wedding ring.
Yeah, so I noticed this a while ago, and I don't know what drew my attention to it in the first place, but he hasn't been wearing his wedding ring. So I thought that was kind of odd. And I think there was something that he said that was kind of almost disparaging about Michelle. And I thought, what's going on here? And then I noticed when he was over in Europe, he's not wearing his wedding ring. So this is a photo that I've got up on the screen from his Twitter feed. This is from May 30th. And so he's sitting around a conference table holding court for the Obama Foundation. And if I zoom in here, you can see there's his left hand and there's no wedding ring. And I went back and looked at photos from like 2004 when he gives the big speech at the DNC, wedding ring. Here he is as a state senator, wedding ring. It just seems strange. And I get it that some men don't like to wear them. And if you work a job where, it's dangerous sometimes to wear a ring, that you wouldn't do it. And I don't know if you've seen it now. They have these silicone rings.
Right. A lot of people are wearing those.
Yeah. So if you're in a job where you're just like, oh, I can't have a metal ring on my finger because it could end up with me losing my finger or my hand if it gets caught up in a machine. But then I remembered this again this week because I heard some stories about him. He's got a little competition going with Michelle about who can sell more books. And I thought, this is just the way that it was reported seemed kind of gross to me. Like, what kind of a man says this kind of stuff about his wife, disparaging her? So this is an article from The Atlantic. It's titled Waiting for Obama. And it says, as 23 candidates struggle for attention, one name stands out. And so they said, I love this. Barack Obama is literally more popular than Jesus among Democrats. As if Jesus has any popularity among Democrats.
Wow.
Anyway, yeah. But anyway, so they're saying, he's so popular, who's he going to endorse in 2020? But before any serious endorsement conversation can commence, he has to finish his book. And then parenthetically, between rounds of golf and raising millions for his foundation. So this is a book deal he got before he left office, which was over 2 years ago. The man hasn't, of course. The writing has been going more slowly than he's expected. And according to several people who've spoken with him, the 44th president is feeling competitive with his wife, whose own book, Becoming, was the biggest release of 2018 and is on track to be the best-selling memoir in history. My God, people need to read better and more books. Speaking on condition of anonymity, like others in this story, these sources note he'll occasionally say in conversation that he's writing the book himself, while Michelle used to ghostwriter. And that was the thing that stood out to me. I'm like, what kind of man throws his wife under the bus and it's just like, oh, well, she had a ghostwriter. I'm writing mine myself.
Which is
bullshit.
I love,
and they make this so grandiose. He's also trying to balance the historical and political needs of a project that will be up to his standards as a writer and not 1,000 pages long. Obama's research process, his research to write his own damn memoir. What does that entail? Can you tell me?
No. And
exactly.
You know damn well, too, it's going to be 1,000 pages long.
Of course. I just think he's lazy. So his research process has been intense and convoluted, and it's still very much ongoing. From the legal pads that he had shipped to, did you know this, that he did this? Marlon Brando's old island in French Polynesia, where he spent a month in March of 2017. So he went to Marlon Brando's island.
He's just like
with
one
a bunch of legal pads with all his notes for his research for his own memoir.
You spent a month on an island by yourself, right? With legal pads writing. He's just like one of us.
Yes, of course.
He's one of the folks.
So, yeah. But anyway, so this goes into this whole thing where it's not coming out this year. And I would imagine when you get an advance that's that big, they kind of have you on a timeline, right? Michelle's book will come out in 2018, and then yours will come out in 2019, because we don't want it out in an election year.
Right.
Because then you're going to overshadow. Then can it really come out in the first year of somebody's new term? Because they want them to come out at Christmas time, so it would be 2020 right after the election. No.
Tracy,
So
he would want it to come out in an election year. Come on.
But
it's all about him.
But here's the deal. It can't come out. It will be right after there's a new president. Either there's a Democrat president or Trump is reelected. So you got to think sales-wise. If Trump is reelected, how many people are going to want to go and read Obama's memoir? Maybe some. They want some solace and they want to reminisce about the good old days and spend, 2 weeks reading his 1,500-page memoir.
I can totally
Or
see
it's going to be a
out.
Democrat, and
totally
then he's going to overshadow them.
I can totally see that. That's where that's where I was going. It's totally going to come out in like June of 2020 or July, right around convention time, and then the accusation will be rightly so. He's trying to overshadow the potential or the nominee on the Democratic side for president. And it's, while we're nominating a Democrat to run for president, we still have the huge shadow of Barack Obama. And he has such an ego.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and you have to run for president. I mean, and be president.
Well, I don't know. I was thinking about that. I was trying to divide up the Democrat field into different kind of lanes. Like everybody thinks, there's the progressive lane, then there's the centrist, if you could say such a thing. But I was looking at it as the egomaniac lane, and then the savior complex lane. So yeah, you put Biden in the ego lane. Elizabeth Warren would be in the savior complex lane. I don't know really. That's a hard one.
Because I could see Bernie in 2016 being the savior complex.
Well, we could have a grift lane as well. It's just like, who's in this just to get name recognition and make more money?
It's a crowded highway.
Yeah, I mean, de Blasio could be in there. I was reading, I've signed up now for emails from almost every one of these guys. Anybody that's polling higher than low-fat milk, and de Blasio. And every email from the last 4 days is a fundraising appeal. And de Blasio's was so pathetic. It said something like, we need 77 more donors to hit 500 by the end of the week. Oh, man. Oh, that's got to hurt.
If only he had a base. If only he were from a large city that elected him to be mayor, that would be willing to donate to his campaign.
Nah. No, I wish that reporter that wrote the article we read last week had taken photographs of those signs at his current YMCA in Park Slope. If any of our listeners live in Park Slope and can get to that YMCA, I'd love to see a photograph of these signs. I assume they're handwritten, unless somebody took the time to get them printed out, which would be even better.
They're handwritten on legal pads from
Brando's
Island.
I'm going to go write my book for a month. Need to go to Brando's Island.
So you're saying, to go back to that story briefly, so you think there's trouble in paradise between Barack and Michelle?
I do.
How's that possible? I mean, they had that love story movie that came out that everyone went to see. I'm surprised it didn't win an Academy Award. It was so wonderful.
I know.
But in just a few short years after that movie came out, it was the courtship, I believe, of Barack and Michelle. Now it's he's not wearing the wedding ring, and he's throwing her under the bus regarding her book.
Damn. I'm going to write mine. She didn't write hers. That's why it takes so long. When you get a ghostwriter, they just crank that stuff out. Well, you would think if he was smart, he would hire her ghostwriter. Because her book will be the best-selling memoir of all time.
Can you explain to me? Look, I couldn't stand her comments about was the first time in my life I was proud of our country, and I didn't like the school lunch stuff. But other than that, what is her? I don't understand her appeal.
I don't get it either.
I don't understand. There aren't many first ladies where I do understand their appeal, where people are running out to buy their books. Going back to Nancy Reagan, I don't understand. Can you explain it to me as a woman? Use your girl brain for a second and explain it to me. Do you care about a first lady's life and a book that she's going to write, regardless of the party?
No, not at all. Not even a little bit. I'm not interested. I don't care what they're wearing. I don't care about any of that stuff. The only time I ever cared was when Melania was trolling people with her fashion choices. I thought that was funny. And in my head, she's just like one of those Eastern European chicks. It's like, don't mess with my family. I'll cut you.
Yeah.
You know? So she could have a fun, if she just unleashed, at least the Melania in my head.
Right.
I might read her book. This is how we kill all the Democrats that get in our way. Figuratively, of course.
But to me, the most fascinating first lady, and the first lady that has really done the most for our country, is Betty Ford.
Yeah,
I
think that's fair.
I admire what she did with the Betty Ford Clinic, and she didn't ride the coattails of her alleged rapist husband to a senator seat and and Secretary of State like someone else that we won't mention right now. So the whole idea that people were just running out to buy Michelle's book, I just don't get it. God bless.
I don't know. They sanctified her. You know, they beatified her.
Well, that wasn't that the talk before we really got into the 2020 campaign season was, oh my gosh, if Michelle Obama announces she's running for president, she'll clean up. She'd even beat Joe Biden.
She still could. Well, I think a lot of people now think anybody can be president because Trump is.
Yeah.
And she would have 100% name recognition. We have no idea where she stands on anything except school lunches. And her, what is it, the Let's Move, was that her other thing?
Gosh, I pay so little attention to first ladies that I maybe, sure, let's go with that.
Yeah, she wanted everybody exercising, and it looked like
and that should be
she exercised sporadically, perhaps.
Well, we heard about her arms all the time.
Oh, which was so gross.
But look, I think that's the kind of thing that I want to see out of a first lady. It's like they should come up with campaigns that the whole country should rally around, regardless of your politics. Okay, kids getting more exercise, that's fine. Just say no to drugs. Okay, that's good. You know, not hey, we should have socialized medicine.
Right.
You know, I think maybe you're going a little far there.
Yeah.
How about literacy? Tackle that instead of nationalizing.
Here's my plan.
System. Boy, you just look back even to I know you were very young during the Clinton years, but
I was in junior high and high school.
Okay, but you didn't observe politics, I'm assuming, when you were in junior high, like you were, like you are now. But you could tell even back then just how power thirsty Hillary was.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the warning flags, should have been waving all over the place. But I don't know. I don't mean to keep talking about first ladies, other than I'm fascinated that Barack Obama may have thrown her wife or his wife under the bus when it comes to this, the books. But at least you did say that it was an unnamed source who said all that, right?
Right. It's lots of unnamed sources. Well, nobody wants to be the one caught talking about Obama, who's more popular than Jesus with Democrats.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So there's that, and it'll be. If I were to make a prediction, I think that the Barack Obama book will come out sometime during the 2020 election season, but I could be wrong.
I don't know. I mean, that's kind of up to publishers. They're gonna be wanting to do it at the time they think they can get the biggest sales out of it. And so maybe, I mean, if Biden ends up being the nominee, it probably helps him. But then they're going to see, the problem is if Obama's going to be going out campaigning with a creepy, handsy Joe, he can't be also promoting his book. And they want to send him on a book tour.
Well, and that's the other question I have before we move on, Tracy, is if you were going to predict right now who Barack Obama endorses, who does he pick?
He has to pick Biden.
Does he?
Yes. Because if he doesn't pick Biden, that undermines his picking Biden to be his VP.
Well, times change.
Does it not?
Times change. I think he picks Biden. I think he waits until he knows who he believes is going to win, and then he jumps on that bandwagon because he doesn't want to pick a loser.
Oh, yeah. No. I think you're right. I don't think he's going to endorse until the convention where he'll speak. Maybe he does his book release at the convention and just overshadows everybody.
Right? Oh, I could see that.
Yeah. Everybody gets a copy.
That's a very Clinton move, by the way.
Yeah.
But look, he can't make the endorsement at the convention because in theory it would be sewn up by then. But
well, yes, I mean he'll make it before that. When it's sewn up after I don't know. Who knows how long this primary is going to drag? We didn't expect Bernie to hang in as long as he did.
That's true. But it definitely appears as though, at least from the outside looking in, that the DNC would love it to be Joe Biden, and maybe maybe the DNC even tries to push the former president into making making an endorsement. I don't know if that's even possible when it comes to a former president. What are you gonna do?
Right. I don't think Obama does anything he doesn't want to do.
And why would he? God bless.
Oh, he's got money to go raise.
Do we know yet what the Obama Foundation is actually going to do? Is there a mission yet?
Oh, here we go. I can show you right now. Here's their Twitter page.
Is it the mission of the Obama Foundation to go to Brazil and trash America and its gun laws? Is that the mission?
Well, the picture I showed with him sitting at that table was in Bogota, which is Colombia.
Oh, yeah.
So I like that they've now changed the Obama O logo. Used to be red, white, and blue. Now it's just black and white.
Oh.
I guess gray tones would be more accurate. It's not black. It's actually a gray. So our mission is to inspire people to take action, empower them to change their world for the better, and connect them so they can achieve more together. That sounds like a whole bunch of nonsense.
That sounds like that was focus group, and that statement came. But they had about 50 people involved with coming up with that statement.
Right, but it doesn't tell me what they do at all.
But isn't that a perfect mission statement for an Obama Foundation? I mean, how many times would we sit back during his presidency and watch him give a speech and it'd be 10 minutes long, and he was so gifted at giving a speech that would be 5-10 minutes long where he had a bunch of words flow out of his mouth, but he didn't say a damn thing.
Yeah.
It was just lofty language and inspiring. But then after it was over...
Soaring rhetoric.
Yeah, soaring rhetoric. And then after it was over, you're like, what? Did he actually say anything?
Oh. That is his superpower. And I've noticed that Mayor Pete does the same thing.
Oh,
he has that same superpower. Yes, he does.
Well, Mayor Pete's... campaign and his it's really fascinating to me because I don't know how long you can run a candidacy based on a faux feud with the vice president of the United States.
Right.
A one-way feud. I mean, maybe it can fuel you for a while, or maybe it just keeps you at that 5 to 10% throughout most of the election season, and you just hope you survive as other people drop out, and then hell, maybe you'll be picked to be the VP candidate.
Could be.
I mean, history would be in the making if he's
Oh,
the
wow.
VP.
Can you imagine if Elizabeth Warren gets a nomination and then she picks him as the VP? Well, she's going to have any of the women aside from Tulsi Gabbard are going to have a problem. And this is something that Camille Paglia pointed out, which I think is absolutely true. And she pointed it out when she was talking about Hillary back in 2008, I think, that unlike Europe, where we see a lot of female prime ministers, we've seen it in Australia and I believe New Zealand, our president is also the head of our military. So at least subconsciously, people understand that, and they think Elizabeth Warren's going to be the head of the military. I don't know about that. The lady that looks like the librarian that yells at you for putting your book back in the wrong place or messing up things in the card catalog, bringing your Starbucks in to the, I mean, come on. Would you feel confident with her? Can you imagine her going to visit the troops?
No, I can't. And, there will be accusations of sexism for
of course.
Men saying something like that. But no, I can't. But I could see a Nikki Haley doing that. Going
potentially.
To the troops. There are plenty of women that I believe could do that, and there would be credibility there. But I don't know if you can lie about your heritage for decades and then have something as embarrassing as a 23andMe test almost ruin your campaign.
But it's not even that. It's just a personality thing.
There's that, too, of course. Yeah.
She doesn't seem to, I don't think she's going to terrify any of our enemies. Maybe like, that chick? Please.
Well, but we've had, did Harry Truman intimidate our enemies?
I think dropping bombs is kind of intimidating.
Well, after that, but if you're just looking at him and listening to him speak, it's not like you're like, ooh, Harry Truman, oh my God, don't mess with him. And then
I know.
And then he dropped 2 bombs and everything changed.
Yes. Well, so that puts that in everybody's heads. Even the meekest of men is willing to drop 2 bombs. I don't think anybody's going to believe that Elizabeth Warren is willing to do that. Well, and not that I want to see any of that happen.
Well, no.
He did. Right. But I do think that the first female president that we have will have had military service, will come from the military.
That's probably fair. Yeah, I think that's probably the case. But
I do expect after these debates to see Tulsi Gabbard move up in the polls.
Well, it all depends. That's the one thing that was always fun, too, during the, when you had 15, 17 Republican candidates up on stage and they would do a breakdown as to how long each candidate talked, had a chance to speak, and some of these candidates, in a 90-minute, 2-hour debate only get to speak for 4 minutes. You'd have people like, Mike Huckabee up on stage, bitching about how little time. It was Mike Huckabee, wasn't it? I can't even remember. It was 2016. He ran in 2016. Isn't it amazing? So the also rans, you forget. You had you had Rand Paul.
Cruz.
Yeah, Cruz.
Kasich.
Oh, Kasich. I thought Huckabee ran, didn't he? Isn't that awful?
I'm Googling it right now. Let's see.
But you had a bunch of people, Lindsey Graham.
Yeah. Jindal.
Yeah.
Carly Fiorina. Oh, good Lord. I just want to list.
The New Jersey governor,
Christie.
Yeah,
Ben Carson.
Ben Carson.
How do we forget Jeb?
Oh, yeah.
You're right. Huckabee ran.
Yeah, Huckabee did run. I think Huckabee complained on stage once about how, well, geez, we're here too, and it's nothing but Ted Cruz and Donald Trump and 2 other people arguing back and forth, and we aren't even getting a chance to speak.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting to see if some of these candidates are even going to be able to get much mic time when you're talking even with 10 people in a debate. My gosh, if say you've got on the debate stage Joe Biden, And then in the other debate stage, you got Bernie Sanders.
Right.
You know, they're going to suck so much of the oxygen out of the room when people are going to be attacking them. And then you're going to have some people that, if you're pulling at 1%, how much mic time are they going to give you?
Right. Well, you're going to try to get in there. I bet you, I just had a vision of them sitting watching, game tapes from the 2016 Republican debates with their staffs and saying, okay, this is how we have to prep. You have to watch how people were able to wrangle more time than they should have gotten. Yeah. And how many times are we going to have to hear about, oh my God, he was such a sexist for interrupting her?
Yeah, that's going to be, there's going to be so much ugliness and Democrats eating their own during this election cycle. It's going to be so much fun to watch. But the other thing, we're almost out of time here, Tracy. We're coming up on an hour. There has been such a focus by Facebook regarding how to spot fake news.
Yes.
Fake news has become a real problem in our country, according to some people. And I know you're a big fan of Scott Adams. I love his Periscope. I don't get to see it nearly as often as I would like, just because of my schedule. But you are a frequent viewer of his streams and and a fan of his blog, and so he gives some tips on how to spot fake news.
Yeah, I thought this was great. So if you don't know, Scott Adams does the Periscope every morning at about 10 a.m. Eastern time, and then it's out as a podcast by about noon. So I usually catch the podcast because I'm at work at 10 a.m. in the morning. But he did one this was on the 27th of May, called Teaching You Some Tricks for Spotting Fake News When Everyone Else is Getting Duped. And he pulled out his whiteboard and kind of took you through this whole thing. Like during the normal course of a day, your stimulation levels go up and down across time. And what happens, one of the ways he said to spot fake news is if something is so exciting that you're willing to turn away from your normal life and just be hooked into it, it's probably fake news. And then he gave you a really easy one, fake news filter. So these are the things that you can tell are normally credible. Any stories about disasters, the names and places of people in stories, and any story that's reported by what he calls both sides. So that would be something that's reported by CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, and say Breitbart. If they're all reporting the same story, it's probably true. Mm-hmm. But if only one half of that is reporting it, say CNN and MSNBC, but not Fox and not Breitbart, or they have a different take on it, then it's probably not true. And then he says fake news. In this category, he's got predictions, which is a lot of news. And I would put speculation in there.
Right.
Mind reading. So when they're trying to tell you, oh, this is definitely what Trump was thinking, all this stuff, what they talk about his temper tantrums all the time. Like he was definitely doing that. Framing of things. Now we've seen fake quotes go out. He said anytime science is quoted, a lot of the times the actual scientists who are being quoted will come out and say, that's not really what I was saying. And then also we've learned that these studies that everybody jumps on, anytime there's a new study, it's wall-to-wall coverage of this is what the study says. But they found out recently that half of the studies that come out can't be replicated.
Right. The bogus.
So, yeah, they're bogus. Anonymous sources, which is a big one.
Yes.
And then the laundry list of things. So he said, for example, in the Mueller report, there's all these 10, it's actually 11 from my reading of it, these 11 instances that might have been obstruction of justice, but the news keeps telling you there's 10 of them. Mm-hmm. But when you have to give that many reasons for something, it's because you don't have a good reason. If you just had one good reason, that's enough. You can stop there. But when you get into listing all these things, and you can find this all over the place with stories against Trump, these are I think there was a really famous CNN thing, like the 60 reasons that Hillary lost the election or something like that. And then he threw in video at the end because now we've seen, videos can either be taken out of context, edited to cut off the second half of the clip, with the most famous being the Trump and the Fine People hoax video.
Right.
And then also, what we've seen with slowing down, speeding up of stuff. And now there's this new technology called deep fakes where somebody could take you or I and make us say anything that they wanted us to say, and it would look legitimate. So that should help kind of arm you against fake news.
For me, it two things that pop out. One is if the news breaks on Twitter, and you can kind of tell by looking at the Twitter bio that it appears to be an activist who is breaking the news, then chances are it's bullshit. The other thing, too, is it's really cable news in general, how because it's a 24-hour business model, so much of it is just talking heads speculating. Mm-hmm. And as we found, especially in the last 2 years, most of it has been fake news regarding the Russian collusion. We played the video a few weeks ago, the latest bombshell that could bring down the Trump administration. And then it's 3 liberals speculating on, will this be the thing that brings down the Trump? And it was nothing but speculation. And a lot of it was speculation based on news from news organizations that used unnamed sources. So the whole thing, this has been what news has been for a long time. Run a poll and then pretend that that's news.
Right. No, it's almost like watching the Psychic Friends Network anymore. It's mind reading and fortune telling is what the news has become.
It really has. So, but what is troubling about it is, look, I want the ability to make that judgment myself, and I don't want Facebook making that judgment for me. And unfortunately, we're seeing more and more platforms wanting to censor the news and make these decisions for their customers, and it's a very dangerous road to go down.
Yeah. And
anything else, Tracy?
I got nothing else.
Remember, you can catch the Enough Already podcast on SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, and iTunes, and do us a solid and leave us a review, preferably a 5-star review on iTunes. And that will help get the Enough Already podcast in front of more people, and we'll get more listeners and all that jazz. But you can find the Enough Already podcast where all good podcasts are sold. And also you can watch us so you can see our smiling faces, and you can see where I am today drinking my beer. You can watch the Enough Already video cast over at BitChute and YouTube. Final thoughts?
I got nothing. I hope you drive safely.
Thank you. I've only had one beer, believe it or not. Yeah,
I don't believe it.
Oh, no, it's true. I do this other podcast with Tony Katz out of Indianapolis called Eat, Drink, Smoke, and we were reviewing a rye today, and it was awful. None of us finished it. It was terrible. Ooh. I won't mention the name of it because it was given to us. It was free. So no need to trash it any more than I've already trashed it, but it was bad. So I've had one stout that I'm drinking here, and then I will wrap that up and head home. But I want to thank everyone for tuning in, finding us on every podcast platform imaginable, or watching us on BitChute and YouTube. And remember, you can catch all things Enough Already at our website, enoughlalready.us. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/Enough Already Podcast. And remember, you can follow Tracy on Twitter at Tracy L. Connors. Follow me on Twitter at Fingers Malloy. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back next week with an all-new Enough Already.